Hello, I'm Simon Whistler. You're watching TopTenzNet, and in the video today we're looking at the top 10 fascinating facts about China's high-speed trains. When it comes to high-speed travel, Asia is the future. Compared to the slowly chugging automotive dystopia of the USA, the region of Asia-Pacific is a fast-paced wonderland. And so who would the Usain Bolt of this endless race be? Well, that would be China by an extremely fast country mile. Starting in the early part of the 21st century, China began to build high-speed rail track, and they built and they built and they built. Fast forward to 2017, and the country is a vast network of bullet trains hurtling millions of passengers over distances we'd usually consider impossible. While Japan may have started the locomotive speed boom in Asia, it's China that has made it its own. And as China tends to do, they've made it bigger, crazier, and more fascinating than anybody else. Number 10. It's really, really fast. First things first, you should know that China's high-speed rail service is fast. But exactly how fast? Well, let's just say that if you could build a train track straight upwards, you could take a bullet train from Beijing to the moon in under 60 seconds. Okay, that was totally a lie, but one with a serious purpose. It was to illustrate just how mind-blowingly fast China's trains are capable of going. 2 of the 3 fastest commercial trains in the world can be found in China, both in Shanghai. Of course, the Shanghai maglev is the fastest, topping out at 267 miles per hour. When not carrying passengers, it can hit 311 miles per hour. While impressive it's not the fastest ever, Japan's experimental bullet train has peaked at 366 miles per hour. But that bullet train in Japan, that won't be online until 2027, while Shanghai citizens have already been hitting these mind-melting speeds for over 10 years. Of course, it's one thing to hear big numbers, but it's another to actually process them. So here's an example. The Beijing-Shanghai line will take you 819 miles in slightly under 5 hours, and in a bizarre coincidence of me recording this video, I just took that journey 2 weeks ago. That's further than the distance from New York to Atlanta in less time than it takes you to binge watch a new Netflix miniseries. Number 9. It's ridiculously cheap. Given the fantastic speeds Chinese trains can hit, nearly half the speed of a flight, without all the waiting around and egregious security checks, you might expect them to be pricey. Well, not so. While China's rails don't quite fulfill the communist promise of travel for the poorest of the poor, they're still well within the affordable bracket for most commuters. Take our crazy fast Beijing to Shanghai line from the last entry. Want to guess how much that cost me in a second-class seat? That was 553 won, or around $80. Want to guess how much our shorter NYC to Atlanta journey costs with Amtrak? Well, that's $122, plus the soul of your firstborn child. Okay, we made up the part about the soul, but that's still an extra $40 for a service that takes 3 times longer to get you not quite as far. If you're catching the regular commuter line, things are even cheaper. The 24-kilometer Chang'an to Weifanglang in Shandong province is 4.51 or 67 cents. And you better believe that a lot of people ride those lines. In the same way that the shape of America's cities was dictated by the arrival of the car creating the suburbs, China's cities are now shaped by the bullet train. Number 8. It's absurdly popular. Since China's trains are so fast and so cheap, you'll probably expect them also to be popular, and you'll be even more right than you already think you are. China's high-speed services don't just attract crowds, they attract the biggest crowds you've ever seen. In 2016, the number of passengers was calculated at a staggering 1.5 billion people. That's more than the number of people who actually live in China, a country not exactly known for having a modest population. To put it another way, given the estimated global population of 7.5 billion, 20% of all humans in the world ride on China's high-speed rail in a single year. That means that if aliens randomly abducted 5 people from across the globe and interrogated them, they'd find at least one of them had ridden China's bullet trains. To be clear though, we're just using these numbers as an illustration. Even a super-authoritarian state like China can't log every single person using its trains, and many people are presumably counted multiple times for different trips. Still, even if no one's buying a season ticket and logging endless individual journeys, 1.5 billion, it's still a crazy number. And what's crazier still is that it's only going to get bigger. Number 7. China has more high-speed track than the rest of the world combined. We mentioned earlier that China's love affair with high-speed rail eclipses that of even Japan. It's worth reiterating just how deep this love affair runs, though. China has the largest high-speed rail network in the world, with over 12,500 miles of track. This isn't just more than the country with the next biggest system, that's Japan. It's not even more than the next 5 countries combined. It's more than the entire rest of the planet. If you were to lay every single non-Chinese piece of high-speed rail track back to back, you'd still have less than China does. And China isn't slowing down. There are plans to lay another 9,320 miles of track by 2025. Looking at maps of the country's infrastructure plans, the entire eastern region is going to become a network of squigglingly high-speed lines as dense as any normal rail network in another country. Even Hainan Island off the south coast is ringed by a high-speed line. Hainan, for the record, is barely bigger than Maryland. The result has already been the creation of incredible megacities, as people in Shenzhen can commute to Guangzhou, a distance of nearly 85 miles, in as little as 30 minutes. Number 6. The difference from before is insane. Go back on China 20 years and hop on a rail, and what do you think you'd expect to find? Well, there'd be no high-speed rail, for sure, but maybe a system that was already noticeably modernizing. Maybe a rail network that might just be in need of a serious upgrade, but was at least essentially solid. Well, prepare your time-traveling past for one heck of a shock. China's trains in the mid to late 90s weren't just slower, they were slow. How slow? Well, try an average speed of 37 miles per hour. Note, we did not miss out a zero there. Chinese trains in the dying years of the 20th century were awful. Most major cities weren't connected, and the idea of even a good-sized town having its own rail line was almost unheard of. What few trains there were ran painfully slowly and were so overcrowded that they'd make rush hour on the Tokyo commute look roomy. Back then, the smart money would have been on China becoming a car nation, like the USA. The Communist Party, though, they had other ideas, and when the party sets its mind to something in China, well, it tends to get done. Number 5. The Railways Ministry has got involved in some crazy projects. Although it was officially disbanded and folded into the Transport Ministry in 2011, China's State Rail Department still has a reputation for getting involved in some crazy engineering projects. Just as railway engineers in Victorian Britain embarked on awe-inspiring stuff like the Fourth Bridge, 21st century China is getting involved in some equally visionary projects. The difference is, though, that China's projects go right through practical and into borderline insane. To take just one example, in 2015, Beijing announced it wanted to connect China to Nepal by rail. No problem, except Nepal is a mountainous country that's not easily accessible from the Chinese side. So China decided to build a rail link that would tunnel right through Mount freaking Everest. 2 years later, the project hasn't started, but it's still under active consideration. But even this, it pales beside China's craziest scheme yet. In 2014, Beijing decided it wanted to build a line connecting China to the United States. The proposed high-speed track would be the longest rail line in the world across 4 countries, China, Russia, the US, and Canada, and include the world's longest undersea train tunnel connecting Russia to Alaska. Even at high speed, the journey would take 2 days to complete. Number 4. The guy behind China's bullet train got purged hard. With all its crazy buildings, high-tech madness, and super wealthy business people, it can be easy to forget that China is actually an authoritarian communist state. That means there can be purges that target anyone and leave them sentenced to hard labor. One high-profile victim is Liu Zejun, the guy behind the country's high-speed rail network. Zejun used to be known as the father of China's rail lines. He was made Minister of Railways in early 2003, just as China was embarking on its high-speed dream. Under his watch, the railway ministries used every trick in the book to get extra funding and political support. He ran his department like a personal fiefdom, growing it in size and power until it was rivaled only by the military. 5 years after taking office, he had opened China's first high-speed line. By 2011, he had set up the system that we're talking about in today's video. Unfortunately, Zejun's apotheosis coincided with the meteoric rise of Xi Jinping. The new ruler unleashed an anti-corruption drive in 2013 that saw Zejun swept up over bribes and kickbacks. This being China, well, he was sentenced to death, which was later commuted to life imprisonment. Number 3. There have been terrifying crashes. China's bullet trains are famously safe and smooth, to the point where passengers barely feel like they're moving at all. That being said, crashes are not unheard of. Considering the speed that these trains move at, you better believe that such accidents are nothing short of terrifying. In 2011, a freak lightning strike managed to hit a train just outside the city of Wenzhou. Passengers were unharmed, but the train stalled. As the driver tried to get it restarted, a second train plowed into the back of it at high speed. 4 carriages were sent hurtling off the viaduct and into the water below. When emergency services reached the scene, 40 people were dead and 200 were injured. Gruesomely, new corpses kept tumbling out of the train during the rescue operation, creating a macabre scene for witnesses. To be absolutely fair to China, though, this isn't the only bullet train crash that has happened around the world. In 2013, a Spanish train left the tracks at over 100 miles per hour, killing 80. Number 2. Most of the network is operating at a crippling loss. Remember how we said that China had more high-speed rail than anywhere else on Earth? Well, we didn't say it was profitable. Although more track keeps being built, new stations opened, and new towns connected to the network, China's bullet trains are nowhere near as lucrative as you might assume. In fact, only 6 lines are turning a profit. The rest are losing money hand over fist. These are operating profits, however, which means they don't include the construction cost. All 6 are clustered in the east, linking massive megacities, with the most profitable of all being the Beijing to Shanghai route. As for the rest of the country, well, the Beijing-Tianjin line roughly breaks even, but all the others are financial black holes. The Guangzhou-Guizhou line, for example, owes interest payments of 3 billion yuan a year, which is $450 million, all while making only a third of that in ticket sales. Of the 12,500 miles of track that's already been laid, only about 3,100 of it either brings in enough cash or stimulates the local economy enough to justify the cost. This means the Chinese state is shouldering an insane debt burden. The China Railway Company currently owes over 4 trillion yuan, which The Economist calls equivalent to about 6% of GDP. Number 1. It wouldn't work anywhere else in the world. After all of this, you might be thinking that China's high-speed railways sounds kinda neat, like something maybe we should all be aiming to copy. But good luck with that. China's crazy bullet train network is only possible due to the country's very specific set of circumstances. Try and replicate its success anywhere else in the world, and you'll most likely fail. The major factor here is cost. China's economy is booming, and the state is happy to shoulder the entire cost, allowing unprofitable lines to keep running. There's also how much it costs to build. The World Bank estimates China spends a maximum of $23 million per kilometer of high-speed rail. In Europe, the minimum cost would be $25 million, with a possible high-end cost of $39 million. Try and build it in somewhere like San Francisco or LA, and the figure hits $56 million. So what's the big reason for this difference? Cheap Chinese labor, for one, but also the price of land. In the US and Europe, you have to pay a fair price to buy private land for infrastructure building. In China, the state just confiscates whatever it likes. As a result, most other countries are cancelling or scaling back their high-speed rail programs considerably. We might dream of being able to travel Chinese style all over the world, but the sad fact is that we're probably doomed to an eternity of crawling along at snail-like speeds. So I really hope you found that video interesting. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button below, and don't forget to subscribe for brand new videos just like this every day of the week. Also over there on the right, a couple of other videos that you might enjoy if you enjoyed this one, and thank you for watching.